Peace and good evening. I just wanted to do a response to a tag. Most tags don't come across as all that interesting, but this one seems pretty interesting. I'm amazed not more people have done it. It's by Stephen Bright, the guy who made this deck here, the Spirit Within Tarot. I think it's Schiffer. It says Red Feather. I think that's still Schiffer. We'll read from the book in a little bit. First I gotta go over there and read from what I wrote down, since I did my journal online today instead of the usual in a book. I wanted to point out the decks I'm showing the Hermit cards from, because this is Taking Tarot Personally, the Hermit. And here's the one we'll all be familiar with, but this is the big version, the Tarot of A. Waite by AGM, Deluxe Edition. I'm sorry, Deluxe Edition. I think it's Crackleback. Yep, it's Crackleback. Nobody cares. So there's that one in the middle, and then there's the Margarete Petersen Tarot, which has a pretty cool card. I'm not sure I'll be able to capture this, even with these 5 billion watt light bulbs that are going here. Let's try different angles and stuff, or just move it up. We'll see. But you know, you can look at a video. I got one, Margarete Petersen Tarot, and then the Jeperidze Tarot, which is an odd sort of hermit card. But hey, it said it has, the painting was made with gouache and other things. Who doesn't like gouache? I'm not even sure I know what gouache is. I have tubes of it. I've used it, but I don't know what it is. And then we have the originator of the tag deck, the Hermit card, dude on a mountain with lots of purple and black and gray. Spirit Within. Put that back. And then just to make other versions of this one, we have the Pam's Vintage Tarot, which I think is Game Crafter. I can't remember. Then we had the one I made for me, myself, and I, which is what the Hermit's about, kinda, sorta. So here's that Hermit compared to that Hermit. This would be a 1909 Hermit, if one is to believe websites. That's what the image is from. And I've been busy edging it, as you can see. Only a few cards to go. Look at the beauty of that. Now, it's nice. It also helps that it has a black border, because the mistakes aren't so apparent. And if I had it to do over again, I would not make that purple. I would have made it a sepia or off-white of some sort. But let's move his book so I can access and read from it here in a little bit, after I read what I've got. So we're 3 minutes in. I'm going to minimize this. Bring the microphone with me. Forgot the microphone, sorry. I'll let you look at cards instead of looking at me, because to look at me requires taking that off the stand or turning it around, or all these other things. Oh, will you look at that? I have to be careful right now. The camera's not level. I didn't catch that. I better go fix that. I'll be right back. Oh my goodness. What are you doing, camera? Let's make sure it still looks okay. Okay, it's maybe a tad bit brighter. I don't know how it's floating like that. That's weird. So here we go. Sorry. I'm adding extra time to this. His are pretty short and reasonable, so I guess I'll just talk faster. But anyway, this is Taking Tarot Personally, the Hermit. And I start off by saying the Hermit seems a natural archetype to become as we get older. I'm older. Apparently he's older than I thought. For most of my life, I wanted to be alone but it just never happened. And by alone, I don't mean totally and utterly alone. I mean some time to be alone, to read, to think, to whatever. Never got it. There was always family or others around, parents, grandmother, cousins, aunts, uncles, great aunts, uncles, I'll say it both ways, school friends, lots of them, work friends, lots of them, 2 wives, kids, 5 of those, and their friends, which end up being countless number of people, neighbors, lots of those, strangers packed into a subway train, as in that rat race in Washington, D.C., where you go back and forth to work for 20 years. Well, until I started running back and forth. That made it better. And there were even strangers while out running for exercise or hiking the Appalachian Trail. Because when I did it years ago, there was like nobody. And all of a sudden, there's like crowds of people. Life was a nonstop flood of people's expressive faces and spoken opinions. Yet I just wanted to do some soul searching. I was never alone for more than a few moments, ever. And oftentimes those few moments would be interrupted by a dog or a cat deciding they needed my attention. As if, oh look, a human, all alone. Let me rub up against it. Yet, as much of a sacrifice as this was personally, I do not really regret in any way doing that in any way, since it was a necessary part of providing for family and friends. If there had been a choice, or there was a choice now, I would repeat it all over again without hesitation. Then I go on to get a little too profound and babbly, so excuse me, but often the Hermit is about taking time to reflect and ponder about our life, and lacking the time to do so is not a good thing, I think, looking back. We really need a retrospective on all that has happened. A bit like trying to catch up to yourself, which is not easy to do, because, you get all that talk about stay in the now. Well, the now was just then. It's hard to be in the now, if you know what I mean. Kind of joking, but if you know what I mean. And oftentimes we reflect upon the shadow aspects of ourselves. I think what I was trying to say there is when we do get that time, that's what comes in a lot. Is you're like, why did I do that? What am I doing? What's causing that? As we try to learn to live with those aspects, even the parts that are malevolent, I said it. And by malevolent, that's like evil on purpose. I'm sure there's a real definition, but to me, that's about as bad as you can get. You've got a part of you that is definitely malevolent. To me, no one can ever truly overcome the shadow. We can only embrace it as a necessary part of ourselves as humans. This is all part of the Hermit, remember? Often we can't even fully realize our shadow. After all, it is a reference to an unconscious part of our being, and therefore difficult, if not impossible, to fully access. To not for example, this should say, to not harness aggression, which would be one of those things that can become malevolent, and use it when needed, is to become hopelessly feeble and weak. This is my opinion. And then I get quote from the Bible, because after all, the first 18 years of my life would have been doused heavily in Catholicism and Baptist upbringing. But the quote is, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." If you look up the word meek in Greek, it does not mean the English version. And so I say it does not mean you don't carry a sword. You do, and know how to use it. And just as importantly, know and desire to keep it sheathed. In other words, you do everything possible not to use it, but if you come up against something and you have to use it, well, you should have spent the time to learn how to use that aggression, how to make it a part of you. Those that use their malevolence, I got it right again, against others usually back down when faced with themselves. And that's not always true. They don't always back down, but a lot of times they do. in my experience. Sure, it would be nice if the world of humans could remove all such impulses and only live in rainbows and unicorns and fairies, but that's not the world we live in. So I kind of steal a football quote, which some coach came up with, and it's an old saying anyway. I don't think he made it up totally. You dance with the one that brung you. And in football, that means if you're a running game, you stick with the running game. Pass game, stick with the passing game. But here, if you're a human, you got to stick with being a human because that's what you are until we evolve. And who will be the first one to figure out, oh, look, we've changed. So in closing, in short, I say after being able to spend the last 6 years mostly alone with me, myself, and I would definitely recommend spending some time with yourself every day, and time as in quality time. But the Hermit card and its archetype is there for a good reason. So if you're able to, then spend some time with you and try your best to be unscripted and unfocused. Let what appears in your mind appear in your mind. Because you're a human. It's not like some thought from somewhere else is going to appear in your mind. You have human thoughts. In other words, try to just be. Don't be all meditative and have no thoughts. That's unnatural, in my opinion. So that's all that I had to say on this. Let me grab the book. Stephen Bright's book. And I'll read the Hermit card. I am the one who withdraws from society, journeying off the beaten track. I've done that. If I want to understand the world, I must understand myself first. Then it describes the high on the mountain type. A man sits alone with no noise to interrupt his thoughts. Don't I wish that ever happened? He contemplates his past, present, and future. I doubt I would contemplate my future ever. The moon lights his solitary path. That's kind of cool, but the sun's okay too. We all need to take time out occasionally. This could manifest as a walk in the park. Yeah, like you're not going to run into somebody. A weekend away, or by relinquishing social engagements for a while. Hard to do. In times of solitude and introspection, you will find answers to problems that may have been eluding you to develop a greater understanding of yourself. I would agree that you will develop a greater understanding of yourself. I don't know that you'll ever find a solution in anything that you attempt to do in life. And with that, I'll get up and come over here and put the book back. And just so you know I'm still here, I'll say peace. Where's the cursor?